Can we find a C? Don't audiate your head. Don't come out loud. Can we find a C? Ha ha. Sing it on zo. See where we are. And. So. Very, very close. Good work. That's your do. And. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, ti, do. Good. Do, mi, re, fa, 2, 3, and up. Do, mi, re, fa, mi, sol, fa, la, sol, ti, la, do, ti, re, do, mi, do, and up. Mi, do, re, ti, do, la, ti, sol, la, fa, sol, mi, fa, re, mi, do, re, ti, do. One, two, and up. Do, mi, re, fa, mi, sol, re, la, si, si, la, do, si, si, do, si, si, do, si, si, do, si, do, si, si, do, Good. Does anyone know what the word, or can someone define the word for me, aleatoric? Or is that all Greek to you? Yes.
Lots of different stuff happening at the same exact time.
Very, yeah, in the ballpark, very close. Anyone want to hone in more? Great, aleatoric means that we have a set number of pitches, but our rhythms can be whatever we want to do. So we're going to start low do to high do. We're going to sing the scale up and down, but you're going to do your own rhythms. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, or do, re, mi, fa, sol. You can do whatever you want. Your goal in this, however, is to lean into those dissonances that you hear around you. Same on that still on that C. And. When you get back to low do a little bit. We're going to go up a half step. This time you're going to slowly rotate in your spine. Why am I asking you to do this? Is it to look crazy like I am? I'm not crazy. Well, sometimes I am. Why are we doing this? Marjorie.
Hear new colors within the section.
Yeah, you hear different colors, and especially if you live in this region where you feel sandwiched, you might hear some of that and some of that come in this way, and it's also not what you give to the tension, it's also what you can take away from the tension. Let's do it in D flat this time. My favorite key. There's your do. Slowly rotate. Be very careful, don't die. Doesn't matter. However the spirit moves you. one last quote from a dear Dr. Paul person. We're going to wake up in the morning. This is how I woke up in the morning. I woke up, then I stretched. And we're all going to stretch. Then we're going to reach up to the very top to the gross ceiling that we don't like to look at. And I'm going to reach down my toes. And we're going to stretch all the way to the toes. And we're going to pulse and really stretch down to our feet. And stretch and stretch and stretch and come up slowly. Got a little bit. And I have a cat, her name is Molly. She's a ragamuffin, if you know what that breed is. She's a ragdoll, long hair mix, and she has the most obnoxious meow in the morning because she wants food. Can you all meow me obnoxiously? Meow! And to which I say, no. You don't say no. No. Can you make now a bright meow? No. Try it. And meow. Beautiful. We're going to go nya 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 and nya 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 no nya no nya and nya no nya no nya. You show something with your hands that shows the bright and then the dark, whatever that might mean to you. Ready and go. Nya no nya no nya. 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 Start speeding it up and we're going to keep it feather bouncing. Ready and go. Nya no nya no nya. Nya no nya no nya. Dark. Nya no nya no nya. One more. Nya no nya no nya.
Thanks so much. All right. Fantastic. You can tell he's done that before. Would you please take out some old crows? And while you're doing that, I'd like to introduce some amazing performers. And we will, we had chatted a little bit before you. We thought we'd instead sort of all, okay? Give them a little idea of where it's at. And then he'll, I'm sure have many ideas. Where would you like to be?
I'll be right here.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. All righty. What you got? Ready and go.
One unsettled, one unmuttered. Each of them thought far more than he uttered. One crow asked the other crow riddle. As the stuttering crow, why does the bee have a sword to his fiddle?
Because, said the other crow, because.
Beep, 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 because. Beep, 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 because. Two old crows sat on a And those two black crows turned pale, and away those crows did sail. Why? Why?
Jeez. Thanks. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I was specifically not looking at your faces because I wanted to make sure that I was hearing it, right, rather than seeing it. I'm assuming that you'll go with the narrative, and so we'll have plenty of time together, which is awesome. The biggest thing right now is just to make sure that you don't feel careful at any point. If you make a huge mistake, like you come in at the wrong time, Sopranos or whatever, great, right? Because we'll figure that out. Like we'll get the counting later. But right now, the goal is for this to be like a children's story and to be involved in it as if it were happening in the moment, right? So when you first sing like a bzzz, it needs to make sure that it comes out of the texture and you're like, whoa, okay, great, sounds good, right? Or when you start the shift where you say, and now the beat has entered, right? That needs to make sure that it sounds different. And what's great is Jeff's awesome warm-ups have already prepared you for that, right? You've got this really bright sound that you just had, and this really dark sound that you just had. So can we aim for that? By the way, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Paul, and I was here 2 years ago getting my master's. So this is how I have connected with you all, and I also sang U Singers. I love this group. So can you stand up, and can we start at that section where the B is now an issue, right, an actual issue. Which is, let's see. Oh no, it's later on. It's the breakdown. Yeah, just to measure pick up to measure 44. Can you find a spot where when you sing a bzz, it's really, really bright, and when you sing like pick up to measure 44, it's really, really dark, and use the darkness not as like a character thing, but as like a dread thing. Like just be, and don't think tension, just think like really dark, and see how that sounds. Okay?
Let me ask you too.
Yeah.
Up here, we were kind of going to should we start on the bottom?
I love the buzz. Yeah, as long as you say buzz at 46, like buzz, then they'll hear both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want darker here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever you're using the narrative in that moment, think like dark as in like, oh my gosh, there's an actual bee in my space.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's start right at 42. Good? Sounds great?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid of it. Like
Yeah.
go so far that it's like, okay, peeling paint off the walls. That's fine, right? And when you come in, sopranos and altos, and then a B, make sure that the darkness doesn't affect your tuning, right? You can have dark or bright sound and still tune it really well and make sure that it's covered. I think that's how you can create that darkness. And then a B, flew close. It's like suddenly a horror story for a children, like a bunch of children around a campfire. Can you aim for that?
Yeah. It's not pitch horror.
Right, not pitch horror.
Yeah. Here we go.
Awesome. Now, there's one crucial part of this. You can go buzz and be very, very quiet after, right? Especially since it's all a group. Can you go forte to piano and really have that be an affect so that when you get into the next bar, it's like, oh, the B is suddenly here. It's like buzz, buzz. I want to feel like it's annoying to the audience, right? And right now it's like, oh, that's cool affect. That's cool. Let's do like something where it's like, oh, wow. Okay, ready? Let's try it.
Annoying. Couple of bases together. Same place. Awesome. I don't know if I clarified for you, but at 51 it is still piano, and you can aim for that. Like
it's continuing that like scary narrative story, right? Basses and tenors, when you come in and measure 48, 49, 49, make sure that you are, sorry, I'm so out of bass. And then, like, don't be afraid of these sudden changes, right? It's going to make the narrative really matter. I realized this when I was writing If I Were a Dog, the previous, like, animal piece that I wrote. And I realized that the only way to make these narratives, like, make sure that the audience is in the palm of your hand is to have these extremes in dynamics and textures and things. Because otherwise they're like, oh, that's a nice story. It's actually very, very difficult to get an audience to go, whoa, what is happening right now, right? So this is a good example. Just go with the extreme. And then when you come in sopranos and altos in 51, continue on with that narrative. And away those crows did sail. Why? Right? It's like one of those wind up boxes from when you were a kid, except it's a horror story, and then it turns into fun. Okay? Can we try one more time? Same spot? Sounds good.
Top 42.
To what we've heard in the previous part of the piece, because you're dealing with, like, you know, two crotchety old crows. Like, that's the goal. So by the time you get here, it's like, oh wait, there's a whole totally different narrative here. It's the bee is actually real, right? So can we go back to the very beginning now? And acknowledge that you can use your color palette, right? Jeff so brilliantly puts this all in your warm-ups. Like, you are capable of a lot more of a color palette than we always think, right? Including me. Like, I'm honestly constantly thinking, oh wait, I can be brighter or darker or use that to my advantage. And in this piece, you're aiming for the narrative that you're focusing on, right? So when you come up with two old crows, altos and tenors, use your various natural voices in those ranges, because they're very different ranges for both of us. Add your huskiness, altos, because it's a little bit low. Tenors, add the brightness, and have it sound slightly different. I mean, you can blend, but aim for those two in the context of introducing the narrative, right? The storyline. Can we try it right from the very beginning? Super fun in the sense that you're like just starting a story, right? Two old crows sat on a fence rail, and then they have some character. Thinking of effect and cause. Okay, they sound ridiculous to me. Of weeds and flowers and nature's laws. Oh, that's pretty, right? So use these different shifts in the way that you're talking about this, these two crotchety old crows. In the context, it's not just about them. It's a story. You are not a character at this point, right? So when you get here at measure 7, you can continue on with that storyline. Two old crows sat on a fence rail, thinking of effect and cause, of weeds and flowers and nature's laws. Use all of that, right? Let's try that right from the beginning one more time. And it can be in contrast to what you're hearing over here in the instruments. This is all fun, and then it disappears because you have some more complex thought to put together. Okay?
What if
so fun? I'm pretending to contain my excitement. Great. So when you get to page 5, when you get to page 4, when you start to speak, this is a reminder that we are not characters, that we are offering the audience a narrative, a story, right? So in that moment, it might feel long before we get back into the recap on that second bar at the top of that page. That's a moment where you have to hold them in the palm of your hand. Each of them thought far more than the other. And then we continue on, right? So can you do me a favor in that spot, just for the future, when you have an audience in front of you, can you look at the audience when you do that? Each of them thought far more than the other. Right? That's the goal, okay? This is a little musical, right? You need to make sure that you include this narrative in the context of the fact that you're creating a story. Can we go back a little bit and try it, maybe right at 15? And when you have these moments where somebody says something and somebody says something else, don't be afraid to feel like you are kind of interrupting. One of them muttered, one of them stuttered, one of them stuttered, one of them muttered, right? That's the goal. It's to feel like we are collectively having little bits and pieces of the story. Okay?
Okay, what of that? Fran?
One of them muttered, one of them stuttered.
One of them stuttered, one of them muttered. Each of them thought far more than he uttered.
Yeah, exactly. That's the goal. That's the goal. And then when you come back in, don't be afraid. I would say, in general, now that I've heard it, just go up a larger, one more dynamic for.
Okay, so it's not from piano to.
Yeah, I'd say mezzo forte to forte plus, whatever. You're bringing back in the energy from that moment. Okay. And then once we get to measure 23 in advance, when you're saying one crow asked the other crow a riddle, you're beginning to consider that maybe we're going to get into it's a children's book, and there will come a time where someone says something and you're actually the crow, right? So one crow asks the other crow a riddle, and then you finally get to the muttering crow asks the stuttering crow basis, and you make sure that you are beginning to embody this really thick kind of crotchety sound that we get to the bottom of 5. Okay? So we're aiming for that. Can we go from the pickup to right where we stopped, pickup to 21? Lead into that? Say we're all in college. One crow asked the other crow a riddle is probably not a good idea, right? One crow asked the other crow a riddle. That's literally what I'm hearing here. Okay? So one crow asked the other crow. It's okay. You can chew these words. Give you permission, right? This is the moment where it needs to make sure that it's a narrative. And if they don't understand the narrative, then the kid's gonna crack or be like, ass, right? So just make sure that you say it right. Can we try it from the same spot? Exactly.
Everybody lost it. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Same stuff. And
I just love this. It's so funny to me that as vocalists we are so confused about. It seems to be there's such a separation between singing and speaking. When we sing, we speak, and when we speak, we sing. It's all one in this. I'm singing right now. Hi, right? We're using the same mechanism in the same way. We just have to make sure that we speak and sing in the same way too. So when you get to measure 27, it's mezzo forte. Right? Ask the stuttering crow, why does a bee have a sword to his fiddle? Just because it's speaking doesn't mean that it needs to sound like grumbly in the same way, right? Why does a bee have a sword to his foot? I definitely am tenor. Right? So just aim for that. Can we go right from pick up to measure 26? And find out what that piano versus mezzo forte is. All in the same context.
So, sopranos, the letter ready, and here we go.
The muttering crow.
That's a stuttering crow. Why does a bee have a sword to his fiddle?
Why does a bee have a sword to his fiddle? Because, said the other crow, because.
Bee, 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 because. Bee, 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 because.
Good. That's fantastic. Yes. Does that make sense? It's like totally different. And it sounds awesome. And I can tell what the words are, so I can continue with the storyline, right? Once you get to the top of page 6, it is clearly absurd, right? Up until that point, you're like, hey, this is a story. And now it's like, what is happening? What is B? That's the narrative of the actual poem. And the reason why I wanted to set this in the first place was because he just didn't care. It's like, great, we're just going to say B, and that's fine, right? This is a children's story. So just make it where it's totally absurd at that point. I love this sopranos, it totally works. Because, said the other crow, because. B, like whatever. You can bounce and do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. In fact, I would encourage you to maybe bounce a little bit when you're doing this. Like, if all the audience sees this, all they're going to be like this, okay, this is kind of fun, whatever. I don't really know. I'm just going to kind of go with it, right? Because it's totally absurd. Can we do that? Can you just maybe, I did not put this in the score, but can you just like bounce once we start doing that? Because, right? Why not? Let's try it.
Muttering crow, one more time, sopranos.
The muttering crow.
That's a stuttering crow. Why does a bee have a sword to his fiddle?
Why does a bee have a sword to his fiddle? Because, said the other crow, because.
Bee, 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 because. Bee, 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 because. Two old crows sat on a fence rail.
Awesome. Yes. Fantastic. So this, just a quick note for you in measure 42.
Yeah.
Can we aim for like you staying fortissimo until 42?
Yeah.
And then decrescendo, because we want to make sure that we hear that slide.
Yeah.
I would say even like go to like mezzo forte, and then have a subito piano when you come back in.
Okay.
This would be really useful for the other. By the way, you are one of 3 choirs that is a consortium that's making this happen. So thank you.
And
It's
likely
really
the
exciting.
first one performing this.
Yeah. So if it's okay with you, I'd love to, once we're done like working on this, I'd love to record it for them so I can send it to them and be like, hey, look, this is what they're working on, and maybe they can send up some feedback about how they're doing as well. It's really fun.
That'd be awesome. By the
What's-
way,
yeah.
bounce thing, awesome.
It's so exciting. So we have to figure out some sort of alternate I think alternate stuff to do at the very end, like because zzz, or whatever. Like we'll figure it out. Okay. So at the bottom of 7, at the bottom, it's like slow moving. Yes. At the bottom of 7, we have to acknowledge that we're back into the story, right? And I would love to maybe think of this space that you have where you're not singing, 2 old crows sat on a fence rail, as your transition into the realization that there is an actual beat going on, like up at the top of 8. So once you stop singing, can you do me a favor and make your face go from 2 old crows sat on a fence rail, right? If you all do that, the audience will be like, whoa, and then they hear what the narrative is, right? Because it's all about the story.
Do you want the,
I think if they are in advance of like first slide, then it'll make them really hear what's happening. So I would say yeah, just use those 3 bars before you come back in sopranos and altos to have like a very slow realization that there is a problem about to happen. Okay? Can we try that? And I will be looking at everybody's face. It'll be fun.
Okay.
Just get to the top of that page.
Starting at 30. Let's give them the transition. How about 35?
actually went as far as I was hoping, and I was trying to show you, it's like, right? And then there are about 90% who are like, I don't know how I feel about this. This is very uncomfortable. So most of you went. So apparently it showed that there was something smelly in this room. It's more important to me that you literally look like you are about to run out of the room, hopefully not because of the smell, right? That's important. Can you do that? Go from to, right? And then we will be ready for the rest of the narrative, whatever is happening, right? Because they don't know what's about to happen. It's important that you show them. If you're reading to a kid, and the kid looks at your face while you're doing that, they're like, and they can't read, they'll be like, I know what's happening, something scary. That's it. Okay? Let's try it.
Okay, here we go.
And switch.
And those two black crows turned pale. And the rainbows rose did sail.
Yeah, does that make sense? Like at this point we are legitimately just like in bed, like bed story time, okay? So that's the goal. I think that transition really works better if you have those facial expressions. Because without it, it's like, okay, great, that's fine, and then there's a weird change and whatever, I should have put that in the score, so now I will, okay? But can you promise, can you pinky swear that you will all do that? Because the best part is, if there are like two people who aren't doing that, then it's like, oh, they're bored. And then they don't focus on the narrative, right? And what's good is 98% of you did that, so that's great. So the 2 of you didn't. I saw you, right? So that's important, okay? And then once we get to there are a couple moments where you can actually think of it as if you are speaking, doing this whole thing, right? It doesn't have to all be scary, right? You could go, just then a bee flew close to the rail, buzz, buzz, right? This is like funny and stupid, right? It doesn't really matter. So just like make fun and go extreme. And some of you can stay scared, and some of you can be like in the narrative at that point when you're doing the buzzing, as long as it's extremely different with the dynamics, okay? Can we go from maybe the top of 8 and go to the end this time? Okay, let's try. Yeah. Oh, that's great! Oh my gosh, yes, totally. I was thinking. Yeah. I was thinking in. Let's do that. Maybe 53. 53. Can you look at the audience? At 55, can you look at each other? And at 57, can you look back at the audience? And this can be gradual. Like it doesn't have to be all the same. It can be like, right? Just like, okay. Yeah, at that point we're just going to continue on to this. And then let's try the bouncing and let's try this. You can see what it looks like. Okay. Okay. Great.
Just
Yeah.
whatever.
Thank you.
Okay. So now 42.
And those two black crows turned pale. And
Okay, so that's a long time to be doing that stuff, right? So if you don't go far enough, it will be weird, right? That means you can start somewhere and grow, or that means you can just be crazy right out of the box, okay? When you get at the top of 11, beep, 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 zzz, you can find somebody in the audience. The other thing I would say, yeah, exactly. That'd be great. When you get to 68, it says add the buzzing throughout range. Is your range relatively about a fifth?
No.
Is your range like an octave? Or like 4 octaves? Yeah, all of you have like 4 octaves. So, you are capable of doing way weirder things with your voice in this moment. It needs to feel like it is at war with what is happening here. And this is getting more and more frantic and more crazy. In fact, I would say even if you wanted to, you could do a little accelerado from 68 to the end until you've got that vocal. Yeah, let's do it. I missed you so much. Yeah, let's try that. So let's start right at tempo 1. At tempo 1 and just, that's okay. And I think this is really good and really fun, and it also keeps people engaged, like, okay, right? So let's try it.
Could we start, actually, can we start with one bar before that on the because? So we're at 59, yes. 59. Ready?
Based on what we're doing right now, which is totally cool, that sounded awesome. Can you lead up into the higher parts of your range by the end, right? Right? So that way there's some way to tell that we are like leading to the end rather than like, oh, it's gonna happen forever, right? Okay? This sounded so cool. Okay, we have about 10 minutes. Is it okay if we run it from the beginning and we record it for our other ensembles? Thank you so much. Sure. Yeah, let's do it. That sounds good.
On run for nothing and then ready? On run for nothing. You ready?
Wait.
Okay. So not recorded. Here we go. Testing out everything. Hit save.
fun. Like out here, by the end of that, as an audience member, I'd be like, okay, right? And that's the goal. Like it's not serious at all, okay?
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Just a reminder, please watch the page turn on 10. Go, then you got one more Y. If you have those Y's down, just turn the page early so you know it's coming. Right?
And that moment is helpful. It would be helpful if you thought about that why is different, right? You're like, why? Look at your neighbor, why? This one you can turn back and be like, why? Why? Because, right? Like that's the punchline and the kids are like, oh, I get it. Also, I noticed some people were doing what I was doing, which was when you're bouncing, the sections when you're bouncing, and you have because, like a quarter. I love that some of you were like, because, because, right? It's super fun. I mean, we're basically Willy Wonka land, so like that's fun. Okay, great. I'm gonna record this with video so that they can also see your faces, because I think it's gonna be really, really helpful. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, please raise your hand, and I am more than happy not to do that. Okay? Totally fine. You will not be ostracised. Okay. And this is internal only. It's only for those two other choirs. Okay?
Okay, friends. Be quiet.
One of them muttered, each of them thought far more than he uttered.
I still think you can go further, especially sopranos and tenors, with your top range on the Z's at the end, right? It's totally feasible, but coming out here, I don't barely hear any top range Z's. And I also understand that that's just like what's happening with the soundscape right at that moment, but do yourself a favor, just right? Like, it's supposed to be sounding weird, because a B isn't like kind of calm about it, they're usually like right, so that's the goal. Okay? Yeah.
Do you want top range like all the way around, or do you want us to like start middle?
If you have it, you can start middle range and then like progressively get like further extreme in it, you know? So like basses you can go down low. Whatever, that's fine. I'm very much a bass, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
One or two really quick questions. Anybody have a question for Paul about the composition or, you know,
Do you choose the text first or do music first?
I usually find the text first, and then I speak it until it starts to sing itself, and then I figure out how to deal with those rhythms. Yeah.
What was your inspiration for writing?
This piece?
Yes.
I literally looked at the poem, and I was like, this is from an 1870s poet. He's clearly having fun. So like, why not? Yeah. As we leave, is it possible for me to get like a selfie with you guys?
Yeah.
Or a picture? Can we like scoot in? Really quick. Thank you so much.